I get irate because
No, I
people then
love this.
decide.
Please, like get into the yeah, get into the nitty-gritty. That's why we're here.
Because people then start shooting their close-ups of their actors using the wide angle lens. And it's like, what are
With
you
the phone right
doing?
here. Yeah.
Right. What are you doing? You've just turned it into a fisheye lens,
Yep.
right? It's pushing all the lines in the screen and it makes it look really awful. And you've completely obscured the actor's head.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. If it's your first time here, my name is AJ Rome and I'm the founder of One Grand Film, where I help filmmakers make their first feature film without funding, with complete support. I was really excited to have this guest on. His name is Cassius Rayner, Cassius, and he is a mobile phone cinematographer and he specializes in it. He's got 30 years of experience, so he knows what he's talking about. So for every filmmaker out there that's looking to shoot something, take advantage of the thing in your phone, this video will be absolutely critical to make sure you're getting the absolute best image possible. Enjoy. A little bit of a background on what I do, which I know you've got some experience with because you're in my school community, is I help filmmakers make feature films
Yeah.
mostly for the first time and mostly without having to fundraise anything. So really utilizing what they already have resource-wise. And so a fair amount of them want to shoot on iPhones or mobile phones in general. And so when you came through the community as like a mobile phone cinematographer, like a specialist, I was like, we got to have this conversation because I think you've got a lot of probably strategies and tips and secrets that could be super, super valuable to a lot of filmmakers that have otherwise blocked themselves behind what I like to call the funding wall.
Yeah.
I need all this funding. I need these resources. I need this big fancy camera. And it's like, I don't think that's true, especially this day and age. And if
Yeah.
that's the block, you'll never make something. So how do you use what you carry in your pocket every day to help you kind of launch your career? How did you end up being a mobile phone cinematographer?
I mean, I've been in the industry for coming up nearly 30 years. I was trained in 35 mil and 16 mil. And that's how I started. And video was Beta SP back then, pneumatic. Anyway, I was working mainly as a camera operator. In the very early noughts, I was given an opportunity with Sky Television to direct a documentary, a feature documentary. I think it was probably because they were just trying to cut their costs. So they said, hey, you film so much, you could direct this. So I thought, sure, I'll give it a go. I always had a passion for directing, but I never went to film school. I just learned on the job. I was an apprentice for 2 years with a local news channel, and I learned by working with other camera operators and being their assistant and their trainee for 2 years. And so I kind of learned on the job, and I just went out into the world as a freelance camera operator and did that for years. Um, Cut the story short, in 2014, due to a family crisis, life changed very quickly and rapidly. And as we all know, you can't. There's a lot of things when you're trying to work in the film industry that you can't plan for. They just tend to happen. And I was kind of living from freelance job to freelance job, and due to the personal crisis, that kind of had to stop. But by that point in my career, I was pretty fed up. Didn't really I wasn't particularly excited about the projects I was filming. I was feeling a bit disillusioned by the industry at that time anyway. So my mind was open to other things, and due to the crisis, we ended up in a lot of debt. There were a lot of financial issues, so I got rid of all my equipment. I sold all my cameras. I sold all my equipment that I'd built up over years, just to pay the bills. All I was left with was my mobile phone in 2014. And one night, while my daughter was very unwell in hospital, I was with her. I found Filmic Pro, the app, in 2014, and was fascinated from a filmmaking perspective. I thought, wow, this, didn't realize this technology existed. Hadn't really heard anything about it, started to explore it, went, oh my God, it's got manual control, it's got focus pulling. Wow, it's all there. This is fascinating. The lenses weren't great on the phones back then in 2014,
Yeah.
but the potential was mind-blowing in what could be done. And because I'd spent quite a few years shooting documentaries, my mind very quickly connected to that and thought, wow, I can really see this being really beneficial in the world that I'm working in. The proximity of it, the speed of working with it, the personal sort of approach that you can give with the phone, the instant response. So I just like explored that, and before I knew it, that kind of is where it started. I mean, interestingly, in the real world, there's a bit of a thing of, oh, Cassius chose to shoot with phone because that was his art form, and it has become that, very much. It is my art. It's my way of expressing my stories. It's not for everyone. But it's not initially how I started. It was literally due to a crisis, due to a difficult situation, being a frustrated filmmaker myself and needing to find another way to continue. How do I rebuild what I've lost? How do I get moving forward? And so I was pushed into a creative challenge of thinking, okay, the phone is all I have right now. What can I do with it? I need to carry on. I've got to keep filming. So I did, and that grew very quickly, and I ended up in a relationship with Filmic Pro. They started to see my work and loved what I was doing. Um, and very soon I ended up working with Filmic Pro, doing a lot of overseas projects, a lot of brand content, a lot of filming, particularly in documentary. And then we did some work with Apple, and I was filming in LA, and I was filming in New York with Apple, and doing double take and so on and so on. So yeah, it built really quick, and then I was being um, sort of pushed as this expert, and suddenly I was doing speeches at conferences, at VidCon. I did a huge presentation there. I ended up lecturing cinematographers at the big UK film schools. I was teaching MA students how to shoot with their phone, and the years have just gone past really quick, and it built up from there. And I've been very fortunate. Well, I have a choice now. If I want to shoot with a mainstream camera system, then that's a choice I have. But I just get too much enjoyment in shooting with the phone that I just kind of don't want to go there, because it works for me. And I've been very fortunate, and I've shot some great dramas, and I've shot some really good documentaries. I've gone to places I could not have done with a mainstream camera system. There's no way I would have crossed the borders. There's no way I would have got through security. Sometimes I was disguised as a medical volunteer in order to get in.
Wow.
On some of the stories that I've covered in Africa, and also the Middle East. I also, a couple of years ago, was sent to the Ukraine. So there's just no way of a camera. I would have been a target. So there's pros and cons, and it's interesting because in the real world of storytelling or news capturing or documentaries, phones do make sense, particularly with the technology and the ability of what they are now and the quality that you can get from them. Drama is still on the fence, for a lot of filmmakers, it seems that way. So that's an area that I'm trying to brokerage at the moment. I'm trying to break into that with other people for them to understand how much potential there is in particularly low budget independent film production using phones, and the benefits of it. And I think interestingly in the UK, there's still a very old mindset of thinking about filmmaking that is very, it's a traditional set. It's traditional systems that we use. It's an Arri Alexa, or it's a Red system, or a Blackmagic camera, or Sony FX, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. But there are times in your career where that may not be possible, and
Right.
the industry is in real chaos at the moment, and things have changed, and budgets are always an issue, always have been, but they're even more so now. And I think filmmakers need to expand their minds a little bit, be very open to the idea of what's the most important thing. Is it getting your story made so an audience gets to see it and for others to see what you can do and what that potential is, or sitting on the fence thinking it's got to be shot on an Arri Alexa, it's got to be done this way. And that's fine if you want to think that way, but I do feel I'm a speaker for filmmakers to say, look, just look at your options. And it's how I learned on the job. It was always, what are your options? What is your B plan? What is your C plan? What is your D plan? What can you go to get things done? And so that's kind of where I sit with it at the moment. I'm doing more in the drama capacity now, and I'm doing a lot of cinematography for other directors with feature films and horror films that are being made in the UK. And it would be great to try to expand that out for more people to think about it. I know a lot of filmmakers do think about it, but there's still a bit of a sad issue, a sad attitude, I would say, that well, it's a phone, it's not filmmaking. That's not proper filmmaking. And I still get a lot of that online. But it's a ridiculous thought process, particularly with the technology, and people are using AI, and that's a whole other thing. But
Yeah. That's a whole
that's
rabbit hole of its
yeah.
own.
But yeah, I guess that's where I sit. I choose to shoot on phones. I like what I get out of my actors when I get those chances to shoot drama. I enjoy the performances I get out of them. I love to see what they experience from it because it feels a lot more real for them in the moment. We're not having to stop and start and change lenses and all the different
Check the
setups.
gate. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But so there's a whole other process. And to me, mobile filmmaking is its own art form. I think a lot of filmmakers gauge it on mainstream camera systems and go, well, it doesn't compare. And of course, the aesthetics of a mobile phone is different, but that is getting narrower in the
Yeah,
technology now in
absolutely.
26. Very much so.
I
So
think that's I
yeah.
think that's what really caught me off guard was I saw your footage it applied in a drama in a cinematic sense because I think immediately when you think of cell phone footage it paints a picture in your mind. It's going to have a very specific look, the post processing, the pixels, it's all going to be built in, everything's going to be in focus. And when I saw what you were doing, I was like, I would absolutely watch a drama in this format because it still looks cinematic. You can tell you're exposing the image correctly. You've been able to develop ways to kind of keep that depth of field where the character's in focus, but there's still some fall off on the background, so it doesn't have that kind of in your face. This is mobile phone footage that could otherwise maybe rip you out of the story. So, what are some of the techniques you've developed to kind of bring a cinematic style so you're not just pointing a phone at somebody and assuming a movie's going to come out the other side?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. And I don't know if there are. I mean, I used to, yeah. So, in context to what you've just mentioned and your question, when years ago, when I was doing it on an iPhone 5, and then a 6 and a 7 and an 8, people were going, oh my God, how are you getting that footage out of that phone? How the hell are you doing it? And everyone sort of thought there was some kind of magic technique that's being used on the phone. And there isn't. The principle is train as a filmmaker, go out and shoot as a camera operator, use a DSLR camera, learn photography. It's all the same principle. It's if you learn that fundamental basics, all I'm doing is all of those years experience as a camera operator is lending itself to how I shoot with the phone. I treat the phone as a camera. Yes, it's a computer, but so are most digital camera systems
Yeah,
nowadays.
so is a red. It's a
Right.
computer in a box with a
Yeah.
sensor on it. Yeah.
Yeah, a very ugly box.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's no trick to it, but it's just the attitude and the approach to it. It's if you're open, a lot of filmmakers do try it and then they go wrong with it because it doesn't have the immediacy or it doesn't give them what they think it's going because they've seen something online and gone, wow, that's stunning. But that takes actually time to do and it takes a lot of practice. Phones behave, of course, very differently to camera systems. The way that the f-stop is fixed on lenses on a phone, so you have to really think about how do you counter the exposure issues that you might encounter. What do you need to add to it because you can't adjust the f-stop, the iris or anything on a phone. Um, so it's about using third-party video recording apps like the Blackmagic Camera App, which is very good. I mean, I was with the godfather of mobile filmmaking, which is Filmic Pro, and I'll always think of them as the godfather in that world. I
I
mean,
was
they
gonna
launch,
ask you what your opinion
yeah.
was on Filmic Pro versus the Blackmagic app.
Well, I mean, I would say that Filmic Pro has died pretty much in today's world. I
Why
think
is
ever
that?
because Bending Spoons bought it. And when they bought the company, they stripped it of its essence, really.
Hmm.
There's I mean the reason Filmic Pro really worked for me as a filmmaker is it was designed by a filmmaker. So Neil Barham was a filmmaker in Seattle, and he looked at the same problem the same way as if I have to shoot on my phone or I haven't got the money for a big camera or a crew, how do I make this phone go to the next level? And that's how Filmic Pro came around, and he developed it for quite a few years. I mean, he originally launched it in 2012. I didn't discover it till 2014. As we all know, Sean Baker took on Filmic Pro in 2015 and shot Tangerine, and that was a big thing globally. Even though that was not the first feature film shot using a phone, but it was the one that got the publicity and it got the media around it. So that really blew Filmic Pro up. And the great thing is, he had a team of engineers that continuously worked on its development, always from the perspective of what the filmmaker needs. How close can we shoot? And the idea is we don't want it to look like a phone. We want, phone footage.
Right.
We want the results to be as close to what we dream and imagine and want as filmmakers. So that attitude was just absolutely kin to what I was thinking and what I needed. So that's why I loved working with them, and they took on board a lot that I say about, maybe we could look at this sort of development or change the interface to have this. And they really took things on board and did an incredible job. But unfortunately, they were bought out by a company that was just after the money. They destroyed a community of over 300,000 users of the app.
Wow.
Um, and it was huge in the Mojo industry, which is mobile journalism, which is a very big industry. The BBC's pretty much number one for it in the UK. All journalists in the UK are trained to shoot their stories on phones.
Wow.
That's now the standard.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and all used Filmic Pro, and it spread globally. But unfortunately, yeah, they crucified it, put it into a subscription basis, blew up the money on it, and everyone was just outraged because it was a one-off fee for life under Filmic Pro's
Right.
flagship. But that changed everything. But then at the same time, Blackmagic suddenly launched this free one.
How do you
What
compete with that? Yeah.
And I don't know how long Filmic Pro could have survived as a small company. They weren't a huge corporation. They were just a great team of people, but I don't know how long they would have lasted anyway with
Well, and Blackmagic's
a
user
free app.
interface, yeah, Blackmagic's user interface is always touted as the best, easiest to use. So then, yeah, you put that on a phone for people that aren't familiar with camera systems yet. It just makes the process so much easier to
Yeah,
learn.
yeah. So I getting back to your question, there's no tricks. There's no real tricks to it. It's sometimes I would actually go as far as saying it's harder to shoot on a phone than it is a camera.
Oh, I would
Right.
agree. I would agree 100%. And I guess in terms of even like I'm I work with a lot of people who've never made anything before.
Sure.
And in the spirit of making things with what they have available to them, most of them don't have lights or lighting, lighting trucks or grips or, any of that. So
Yeah.
I'm always focusing on uh, blocking, understanding the light, the available light in the area, practicals, and composition. Where do you put the camera and why? And I think when you do have an expensive camera with really nice lenses, it's fairly easy to get a decently cinematic image. But like you said, you have to try a lot harder with a phone to get there. So I've had questions like, what's the best gimbal to use? What are the best, lens attachments?
Okay.
Do you have any sort of
Yeah.
specifics in regards to those
Yeah.
things?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. It's a big list.
That's good. No, I
What
mean,
I've
that's
learned,
great.
yeah, but what I've learned, okay, so what I've learned through my experience of, in fact, I've been filming with a phone professionally now for 11 years. But what I found through that experience is it doesn't matter what gimbal you use. There's no such thing as the DJI is better than the G-On gimbal system or this or that. They all principally do the same thing, right? They're all kind of copying each other. They will give you what you need. There are only two main areas that you need to really consider before rushing out and buying a gimbal, because you want to shoot your movie, which can look fantastic on a phone, on a gimbal with all those wonderful tracking and movement shots, is weight and battery life. Those are the two key things that you need to look for. All gimbals come in from the same factories. They're just having different labels slapped on them. The motors are pretty much the same. But the key thing is to think about the weight that you need for your gimbal. A lot of people rush out and buy a specific mobile gimbal, and then they add an ND filter to their phone, or they might have the iPhone 16 or 17 that weighs a substantial amount. And to be honest, those really basic line mobile gimbals will just die. They just go beep, 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 boom. They'll
Yeah,
just
you
switch
burn
off.
those motors out
And you
so
think, oh
fast.
my God, I can't. What have I done? You haven't done anything, but what you've done is you've gone and rushed out and bought a gimbal, and you haven't actually looked at what is the capacity weight of that gimbal. So always be thinking ahead, because the one thing that you are going to have to make sure you do, even if you're using natural light source, you must buy an ND kit for your phone, whether it's with clip-ons or whether you've got a proper, case. All of that's out there for you to explore, and you can buy whatever, format that you need, but you will need to have an ND kit. Those The ND glass doesn't weigh much, but it just that little bit on your phone can make a huge difference to the capacity of that particular gimbal. So I'd always say, whether you want to explore shooting with add-on lenses, and there's lots of different companies that are producing anamorphic lenses, different types of macro lenses to extreme wide angle lenses to add onto your phone, think forward and think, if you are going to go down that route or explore that option, make sure you've got a gimbal system that will carry the weight of a DSLR camera. So you should be looking in the DSLR camera range of
Not
gimbals.
the mobile phone range.
No, you should be
Right.
looking at. I mean, my gimbal will take the weight of pretty big size. It will take the weight of the body weight of a Sony FX, because I want to make sure that I do not need to keep adding. I've got the system, I've got the
Right.
rig that will hold it correctly. I can add whatever lenses I want to it, and it's not going to make any difference to the gimbal. So yeah, you have to step up. So you're looking at a different sort of price range. Yeah.
Do you have because I know my audience, they want specifics. They want you to say a brand name or a model and then be able to go and buy that. Do you have like a favorite? And same with an ND filter. Like, is there anything that pops to mind that you would just say, if you're out making a movie for your first time, grab this one?
Because you can go anywhere on price range,
Right.
and it's always about affordability. What's affordable? I personally use a range of gimbals called Gion. A lot of people in the West call it Xeon or Gion,
Yeah,
but it's
Zune. Yeah,
Gion or Xian. I've been using them for years. I think my very first gimbal was designed by them. And I've kind of stuck with them because I think that's what happens as a filmmaker. You find a brand that really works for you, and you kind of don't need to go elsewhere. Why would you?
you
You
become a
kind of
loyalist. Yeah,
right, you kind of stick to it. So their range of gimbals are really good. I specifically shoot with their gimbal, which is called the Crane 4E. That's a mid-range gimbal, but it will take a lot of weight. It's incredibly sturdy, and I would say whatever brand you go with, make sure your gimbal has substantial weight. Right, a lot of gimbals can be very lightweight. Go for something that has substantial weight to it because it will actually help you balance your shots even more. The more weight you have to work with, the better your shots are going to be for tracking and movement
you
shots.
getting rid of that little jitter that can come in
Yeah.
so easily. Yeah,
And the other thing is switch off stabilization in your phone when you're using a gimbal. So many people forget to do that.
because they
Um,
kind of counter each other, right? The
right,
motors. Yeah,
right, exactly. And everyone goes, yeah, but you don't need a gimbal because the new phones with stabilization are brilliant. I can walk down the street. Yeah, of course you can. And yes, to a degree, they do work, but actually they are cropping your original frame.
right.
Now, when you want to shoot a movie, you need as much of that frame as humanly possible to work with. What you don't need is your phone digitizing and cropping that image in order to stabilize it for you. So that's always been my answer. A lot of people have argued against me, but that's a fact.
I
If you're
couldn't
okay,
agree more. Couldn't agree. I'll double
right,
down on that with you.
yeah, if you want to crop your frame, that's up to you. But I don't want that as a filmmaker. I need as much of the frame as I possibly can get to play with. So I will always use a gimbal. So
Okay, so
yeah,
that was the next question. Will you always use a gimbal if you're shooting like cinema on a phone?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay, so
always.
always a gimbal, always an ND filter.
Well,
What
always a gimbal, but also a handheld rig. I would
that's
never
that was
ever.
my next question. So adding that
Yeah,
weight, because I think a lot of people think like, okay, cool, cell phone, like I'm shooting my movie like this. What and for those of you that are just listening to this, just holding your cell phone up as if you're, taking a photo at a birthday party. What sort of, because I know it's partially for weight and then for stabilization, what other benefits does having more of a sturdy rig, what does that have?
so so a sturdy rig, as it would if you're operating or hand holding a camera system on bars, it's the same principle. It psychologically makes you physically move differently, and it makes you glide more, and it makes you move and pan in a much smoother method. Whereas this is really difficult to work with. Your elbows are awkward, and you're like this. But also, however stable you think you are, your fingers are still shaking, and the phone sensor is so sensitive; it will pick up everything, and you'll look at your mobile screen and go on a playback and go, "Oh, that shot's really good." Get it on a computer screen, and you go, "Oh shit, that's oh my god, that's it's done that, and it's wobbled there, and it's oh my god." Handheld rig, two handles. Always buy a handheld rig that's metal, and there is a huge range of them on the market, and they're not expensive. You can get the ones where you can actually unscrew the arms and place them anywhere on the outer frame to get the right sort of holding that you want. It's going to make a huge difference to how you shoot. Even handheld can look fantastic.
Amazing. And what about are you talking about something with sort of a cheese plate thing so you can put do you ever do like top mounted mics or your data storage or anything mounted on that, or how do you run those things?
Yeah. So external, yeah, okay. So going to the realms of uh ProRes and all the
Yeah,
rest of it, which
exactly.
is
Because I
amazing.
think, yeah, I think a lot of people just think like, okay, cool, I'll just record to my internal storage, but I've got, 27,000 photos on my phone and I'm using the iCloud and whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. But it's like
Yeah.
you need to know when you're going to shoot for 10 hours at 4K
Yeah.
raw that
Yeah.
you've got somewhere for that video to go.
absolutely. And with ProRes, which is obviously the newest development on the iPhone, you are going to need external hard drives. The smaller they are, the better. There's a range out there. SanDisk do some great small 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte hard drives. I mean, if you buy a 1 terabyte iPhone, and you have full capacity, so you have a terabyte to work with, you're still only going to get an hour of footage, right? So on ProRes,
I
it's
think this is
pretty
what people
insane.
don't realize. Yeah,
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 yeah. Now, to be honest, there's nothing wrong in shooting Rec 709, which is what has been the standard. We had 10-bit before the ProRes then came out on top of that. And that was a revolution in itself. From the iPhone 12, I think it was, we could access 10-bit instead of 8-bit, which is what it was normally recording at. And I shot a drama on 10-bit and was amazed at the results. So it's interesting because we're always amazed each year as it progresses, and then
right,
something else comes. But good old workhorse was Rec 709. I mean, it's not for everyone, but I've shot a lot of films on Rec 709, and I'm more than happy with the results of them. And so you have to weigh that up because that aspect, ProRes can get very expensive. It's also about, obviously you've got to buy a fair amount of external hard drives in order for you to shoot all day long, and then you've got to transfer them all. It can take all night for the
yeah,
footage to transfer to your computer. You then need a computer or a Mac studio system that's going to be able to power all of that footage in the edit. So do think it all the way through. You must always think it all the way through. It's exciting to shoot with a phone. It's very immediate. And there's nothing stopping us from going out and shooting a movie tomorrow, on effectively a zero budget, or a very small budget. But you end up with a huge amount of cost in post-production because
right.
you hadn't thought through the process of, oh my God, ProRes is going to need this, and or I can't color grade this. I've got to get a color grader, really expensive process to go through on that. You need a state of the art computer that's going to take the processing power that it's going to need to edit all that footage. So you then think, oh my God, I'm going to have to outsource it to another editor. That's another expense. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're not working on that budget, then you're getting yourself in a really stressful situation that you don't need to. So do look at Rec 709. It is an option, as well as ProRes. For example, I did some work with Sony last year, and I shot a movie trailer of a film that had never existed, but they wanted something that people would go, "Oh my God, wow, that was shot on a Sony Xperia phone." It was great fun to do it. But interestingly, they've got S-Log capture, which is their own Sony range of log capturing, but it's still going onto a Rec 709.
Right.
They haven't advanced their phone to uh, 10-bit ProRes, etc., or that kind of format. But I still loved the results, and
That's yeah. I think
we
that's
could still
underrated.
push.
I
Yeah,
think it's underrated because at this level of, you know, kind of making your first feature film, you're not going to have a ton of VFX. You're not going to have, the need for crazy latitude and color. You're making films that are fairly straightforward. They're generally, writing around what you know, things that are very personal to you and capturing life as it is. And in that regard, I think cell phones actually can do a great job because we have gotten so used to, through social media, seeing life through that cell phone.
yeah.
So what would you determine as the need to go, or like making the decision for that filmmaker of going ProRes versus going Rec 709, which is and for I think for anybody who doesn't really understand what we're talking about, 10-bit ProRes is basically gives you a lot more latitude in color. The
Yeah.
bit depth is more dense, whereas Rec 709 has more of a look baked in, and it's kind of the traditional TV standard color, right?
Yeah, yeah, right.
So
Absolutely.
how do you make that choice if you're about to go shoot something? How do you choose between one or the other?
Well, again, it would come down to, for me, it's what are your outcomes? Okay, so you've got an idea for a very, because I always say, keep your stories as simple as you can. Don't overcomplicate them. Don't have multiple locations. Stay away from it. I'm sure you and
We
your
go through
network
all
have a
this.
lot of
Yeah.
that, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep it as visual as possible. Keep it international, keep it in a language that everyone can understand by watching it. We can see and sense and feel what the characters are going through. But look at the outcome of where do you want your movie to be. If your budget is small, but you've decided, yeah, I want the intimacy of shooting with a phone, and I'm going to look at special ways to make it as cinematic as I possibly can. What's where do I want it to be? What's my audience? Where's it going to go? Is it going to end up online? Are you going to try and sell it to a streaming network? Are you going to put it in the cinema? Now, if your mission is it an ambition is to go to cinema, then you need to be looking at ProRes,
Right.
right? So that's your workflow. You need to be thinking top end, like really top end. You want it to be the excuse me, the best it possibly can, because it's going to go on a mega screen. So
Yeah.
it's got to hold up. Now, don't get me wrong, Rec 709 does hold up. I have shot films that have shown at different film festivals on a huge cinema screen, and even I've been nervous and then gone, oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
it's all right.
Not too
Yeah, it
bad.
works.
Yeah.
There's a couple of moments you go, oh, ouch, a bit noisy there, or it's a bit grainy. Ah,
Right.
bugger. But overall, it's like, yeah, okay, it's possible. This can work. So I'm not saying you don't have to do that, but I think if you really want it to go in the cinema, if that's your mission, then it needs to be ProRes. If ultimately you're going online with it, why give yourself the headache of shooting ProRes and the entire workflow that comes with that? If the intention is that people are going to effectively watch it on what, a TV screen or a computer screen or on their phone, well, if
Right.
that's going to be the outcome, shoot it Rec 709, save yourself a load of money.
Yeah. Absolutely. A lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of heartache, less
Because yeah,
hats.
and
Yeah.
you can still use natural light, you can still push it to the limits, and you can still get really good results from it. I mean, geez, we've been recording in shooting Rec 709 for many years.
Yeah.
ProRes on a phone's kind of a new thing, obviously. So, there's nothing wrong with what works before. It still works.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Sean Baker famously used an anamorphic lens to shoot Tangerine. Do you have a set of lens attachments that you would recommend, spherical
Okay,
or
yes.
anamorphic?
So he actually used an anamorphic lens. I knew the company well, called Moondog. I don't think they exist anymore, but they created this very small anamorphic lens, and it was really quite amazing. It's quite magic. But anamorphic lens, you've got to be careful with anamorphic lenses in particular because it shoots at a specific ratio,
Right,
and that may not match the rest of your film. You might be shooting 16 by 9, but anamorphic doesn't shoot 16 by 9. Once it's de-squeezed, you're looking at a ratio of 133 or 155 or even pushing to 239. It's not going to match the rest of your shots. So you really need to think that through. I would always say, why do you need extra lenses? What is the purpose of those lenses? What is it going to benefit you in the filming? That's fundamental. Anamorphic lenses is a very specific look. And they don't behave the same as a movie anamorphic lens. So an anamorphic lens that's specifically designed to be attached to an Arri Alexa is going to give you a very different result to the anamorphic miniature lenses that are designed for phones. So you need to really think about that. I'm not a big fan of them. I think the curvatures on the edges of the frame really do not work for me. I don't like the end result. It's great for light flare and you know nighttime, street lighting and all. Yeah, it can be very atmospheric, but I would never shoot an entire film on it. I
and I
just
remembered Sean talking about he was just trying to sort of break the cell phone look. And so I think that was one big choice. I know
yeah,
it had some sort of coating on it, to give it a little bit more chromatic aberration. And
Yeah.
then I think he also put a film grain over the entire film after the fact, just to kind of really come out of that,
Yeah.
tiny little cell phone sensor look.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you
But
have
that what well that was all it
yeah, advice for that?
well it was all experimenting in 2015. I mean, it was all very new, let's put it this way, mobile gimbals didn't exist in
Right.
2015. So we were all using sort of whatever balanced little stabilizer hand rigs we could to get the shots that we needed. Um, I mean, he shot Rex 709, so just look at it from that principle as to what do you feel you need to add to it afterwards. I mean, that was 2015, and we're in 2026, obviously, and the technology now and the sophistication of what's available through LUTs, through color grading, through the DaVinci Resolve, you know, none of this was around then.
Right.
So there's a lot to be excited about if you want to shoot Rec 709, to keep your costs down, shoot your fantastic movie. There's so much more you can do with it in the post production to add that extra that you want, or if you want that more noisy, grainy look, or if you want it to be completely color changed, it's all possible. It's the only thing I would suggest. The thing about phones, obviously, with the lenses, the only thing that makes a big problem in post production is, of course, the light source and the amount of light that goes through the lenses. We know that mobile phone lenses are fixed. I'm stating the obvious. I state the obvious because a lot of people tend to forget it. They just
Well, and a lot
they
of
tend
people are
to
brand new beginners, and they
yeah
don't even speak this language yet. And so
right
that's why I really appreciate you, talking to me. Is
yeah okay.
we need a language built around this stuff for people who haven't dealt with this
So
before.
light is an issue. Low light is an issue. So you need to think about where is your light source coming from, whether it's just coming from a window or whether it's coming from practical lights, lamps in the room. If you're filming out in the street and you're just using the shop window light that comes off, or a street light, try to always design your scenes to be around as much light as possible, right? And then what you actually do is you shoot it slightly underexposed. So if you're going to use Blackmagic Camera App, go -2 on your exposure level before you set up anything else. By doing that, by going from 0 down to -2, you'll be amazed at what you can do with it in post production. Because if you shoot slightly underexposed, you can lift and change, highlight, shadows, contrast, crush the blacks a hell of a lot more. Whereas obviously if you shoot the other way around, no, you've lost the information and it's gone. And Rec 79 is a very standard format. So if you mess with that, or if you slightly overexpose your shots because it looked good on the phone screen, I can guarantee you it's a blowout on the editing side. You will not be happy with the results. So if you're going to shoot Rec 709, which is the standard 8-bit format, make sure you slightly underexpose. If you're looking at shadows and going, oh my God, I can't see anything, trust me, you can. You just
Yeah,
can't
you
see
can
it
bring
on
them
the
up.
phone screen. But it's
Right.
better to have that shadow. Right. It's better to have it. But people get freaked out about that on phones and they think you've got to be able to see everything. No, really think about what your line of shadow is and your contrast. Because it can work for you, or you can lift it if it's not quite working for you. Then you've got a choice. So light is important. The main wide angle lens on an iPhone, or on any phone, any Android phone as well, is of course got the best f-stop, meaning it will absorb as much light as possible, and it's better than the other lenses on your phone. And that will always be your default wide angle lens. But here's the thing. Again, this is where people go wrong. They use the wide angle lens to shoot everything, right,
Right.
within the film, and it can look like a mobile video.
Yep.
You can look at it and go, oh Christ, okay, I can tell that's shot on the phone. Um, and if that's the effect you want, fine. But if you're you want to be serious about filmmaking and you want to push that boundary and you want it to look gorgeous, then you've got to think about how you're using the lenses on your phone. The wide angle lens is fantastic for wide angle. That's why it's called a wide angle lens. I get irate because
No, I
people then
love this.
God,
Please, like get into the yeah, get into the nitty gritty. That's why we're here
because people then start shooting their close-ups of their actors using the wide-angle lens, and it's like, what are
with
you
the phone right
doing?
here. Yeah.
Right? What are you doing? You've just turned it into a fisheye lens,
Yep.
right? It's pushing all the lines in the screen, and it makes it look really awful. And you've completely obscured the actor's head to make him look like one huge alien or something.
Right.
And that's not how we look in reality, or hopefully not. But think about your distances as much as you would if you were shooting with a mainstream camera and said, we need a we need a 50 mil for the portrait shot of this actor in this room, and then we're going to go back to the 18 mil to get a big wide, etc. You have to treat the phone in the same way. Now there are restrictions on the phone because you might only have a wide angle and a 2x telephoto lens, as they call it. That's all. That's fine. You can work with that. The telephoto lens, obviously, there is less light coming into that frame, but you can get great, especially with today's phones. You can get some great results. You can shoot some great scenes in any given space using the telephoto lens, and you will actually get more depth of field to your
Yeah.
shot. But you've got to make sure you're pumping more light. So your wide angle can take a little bit less light,
It's a
but when
faster
you go
lens.
in,
Yeah.
right, when you go in with a telephoto, you've got to get a little bit more light in there. If you can do that, then you'll get great results. I mean, here's another tip. I shot a very low budget film a few years ago, and I used what we call in the UK as standard kitchen cabinet lights, lights that go underneath kitchen cabinets and stuff
Yeah.
to make it all look really
Light up
nice.
the toaster.
And I
Yeah.
found, right. I found that they had little touch sensors and they were cylinder lights that I could shoot any actor late at night in the city streets and make it look fantastic because I could get enough light on their face just by literally holding it in above them, just slightly above them. So they're passing all the shop fronts, they're going in and out of the dark and the light, but there's this lovely soft little bit of light on their face. It's not obvious, but it just works for mobile. So experiment with cheap lights as well. Go and buy really cheap $10 little sense lights. You'd be amazed at what you can get from them. I'm going
And
off
would
all
you
over the
have a
place. Sorry.
person? Would you have a person standing slightly off camera walking with that light, or would you mount that to the? I assume
Oh,
you wouldn't mount
I
that.
I did it myself. So I had my gimbal
So
and
you're
I had a
holding your phone on one hand and then the light on the other
yeah.
hand.
I had the
That's
gimbal and
brilliant.
I had a boomstick and I screwed the light onto the boomstick and held it just above the actor. And the client couldn't believe the results of that. And that was in, you know, dark light in central London. And yeah, it worked really well, really well. So there are great ways to. I've got some very old example video clips of things I shot. People say, "Oh, you need the latest phone." You don't. I've been shooting stuff on the iPhone 8, and I've been
Yeah.
proving that you can shoot incredibly dark scenes with the iPhone 8, and it looks like it's struggling, but put it into post production, bang, crisp light source, amazing contrast. It's all possible.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly exciting time for thinking about mobile phones in the movie world because things are difficult right now, and cost is a serious issue. And I was talking to, so I'm slightly going off on a tangent, but I think hopefully it's a great example. I've been in talks with an exec producer in New York for like 2 years now, and he's desperate to shoot what he calls middle of the road Netflix movies, but shoot them on a phone. So I'm not going to mention his name, but he has financed a whole string of movies that are on Netflix and Amazon Prime and stuff. And they're all mid-range budgets. They're $1 million to $5 million budget range. But he said the crazy thing is we can lose $1 million in pre-development so easily. Like money just gets swallowed up. He said, but if we could get these films shot on phones with today's technology, smaller crews, a faster turnaround, shorter time to film, etc., because we can shoot with 4 phones at the same time to capture the entire scene. He said, I could make 10 movies with $1 million.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
and that's where I think it's interesting. It's a great time to be exploring it, and it's a great time to be thinking about it because a lot of top people in their world are also thinking, things need to change. We need to carry on making movies, but we got to look at different ways of doing it.
So, yeah, right. So what is it like for you, or what has it been like when, Steven Soderbergh makes Unsane or High Flying Bird, or 28 years later comes out and the world is blowing up? Oh my God, we shot something on a cell phone. What's that been like for you?
Well, it's exciting to see that. I mean, I think when Sean Baker in 2015 came out, and by then I'd only been exploring it for about a year, and to see him shoot that feature film, I was like, yeah, great. And it had a very documentary style to it. It was very rough and raw, and I loved
Yeah,
it even more for that. I thought, oh, this is really great. This is Robert Rodriguez all over again. This is like just get out there and make it.
right.
And it was really exciting, and it was very exciting, obviously, when Steven Soderbergh stepped into the arena. Um, but there's a pro and con to it. So there's a frustrated side to it because I know that even though like Unsane did exceptionally well, I mean, it made $14 million at the box office, and he shot it for around $700,000, but it still cost $700,000 to shoot. So it's still a significant, in my world of independent filmmaking, that's a significant budget.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah, so there's a lot of publicity that goes with it that works really well, and that's great, for these filmmakers who have made their careers. I mean, in recent times, well, when Steven Soderbergh made Unsane, I thought, oh yeah, because it was a great story.
yeah, it's wonderful. It's a
Yeah,
great movie.
visually, I actually thought it was a bit iffy in places, and I
Agreed.
wasn't, and I kind of wondered if he did that actually quite deliberately because he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's looking at. So
Yeah,
there was obviously some kind of logic to why he was exploring what he was doing. But the story was great fun, and that just proved to me what it was about. That it's about story, and it's about filming with whatever you can get your hands on, and
right.
just get it made. But they are top end in what they do. I mean, you've got Neil, the American filmmaker Neil. Is it Berger? Who did the whole sci-fi Divergence movies.
Oh, I haven't,
You know
yeah,
them.
I haven't gone down that
Okay,
path.
right. So he shot a movie which was released last year called Inheritance, and it's done incredibly well. And he shot it all over the world in kind of real time. So it was all shot on a phone. Tiny crew. There's like five of them. And this is a guy who can play with what he wants to play with, right? He's done some serious mega movies. So again, the publicity around the notion of wow, my God, he flew to the Middle East and shot there, and he filmed in Egypt and with the pyramids behind him, and it was all real because it was cheap, because it was so much cheaper to shoot it all for real. Um, there's lots of action scenes and market scenes where there's lots of chasing and running down Indian streets. It was all shot for real, right?
Yeah,
So this was a real market, real people, real reactions, real responses. It was great. So that opened up a whole new thing, and it was a great thing for all us indie filmmakers. And obviously, we've got Danny Boyle, who just shot, and in fact, it was an artistic choice for him to shoot on an iPhone. He didn't have to. He had a
it was in
$75
keeping
million
with
dollar
the,
budget,
yeah, the original two movies. Yeah,
right? Shot on a Canon XL1 or something crazy, a
yeah,
camcorder.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, good on him, because he's stuck to, because to me, filmmaking is an art form. You're expressing your art and you're using different tools to do it. And that's how I see it. So it's all good, but it doesn't actually support those that are starting, right? Even though those people at that level have made these films, and you can go, yeah, but Steven Soderbergh's done this, and Neil Burger's done this, and so on and so on. They're like, yeah, 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 but they can choose to do
They
that,
can. Yeah,
and they're bringing in their money wherever they want to bring in their money, but you're not
it's
having my money to shoot
it.
on a phone.
Right. It's the same. It's the same thing when people say like, "Yeah, I've written this script. It's single location," and I go, "Yeah, so is Buried, which was a $5 million film with Ryan Reynolds in a box, or Phone Booth, that's a multi-million-dollar. It's a phone booth, but that doesn't make it cheap. You know,
Yeah,
in on the other side of that, mobile phone cinematography has made production value so much easier to get because you could shoot in an airplane or in a crowded market or in an airport that you absolutely cannot do with traditional cameras without a
Right.
permit, without,
Right.
all of these other things. Um, and so in a way, it's made production value so much more accessible to people that don't have money. So I meet people every day. For context for you, I've talked to over 10,000 filmmakers at this point while
Wow.
growing One Grand Film.
Right.
And the chief thing blocking everybody is money. I need money. I don't have anything. And I'm like, you've got a cell phone in your hand. Yeah, but I don't have anything else. You can get DJI Bluetooth lavs that have 18-hour battery life, 32-bit float, internal recording, backup recording on the thing. Like, we have the technology. You can get those for $200 to get really, really good 18-hour battery life lavs that'll shoot all day long and a phone. And most people are sitting in some environment that most of the world isn't sitting in every day.
Yeah.
And so I think people forget to look in their own backyard just because your own life might seem mundane. I always make the case that, like, I grew up in Colorado. I had 15,000-foot mountains as a backdrop to my everyday life, and I didn't even know they were there until I left and came back. And now I go back and I'm just like, these things have
Wow. Yeah.
been here the whole time. Like, learn to look at your life as a movie and what makes your life interesting, and don't block yourself thinking that you need all these resources. It's not a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have a phone in your hand, go make a
Yeah.
story. Even
Yeah.
if it's one person, two people, go make something.
Yeah. And but treat it, and I do, use YouTube, use whatever resource you can to learn the principles of filmmaking, exposure, framing your shots. Really, really, you do. I know that it's like, oh yeah, but I want to make my film now. Yeah, yeah, I know, but spend at least a month, I mean, like Rodriguez said, you can learn filmmaking in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's, that was brave.
Yeah,
But
to some degree, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but the technology was a lot simplified back then. You had a film for, you had 400 foot of reel and you just bloody cranked it up and started rolling.
Yep.
But now you do have to consider a lot of different components, to,
Right.
to make your film. But, do spend some time learning. If you haven't, if like camera operating is not your thing and you want to direct something, sure, but you can direct and shoot and you can learn that aspect online. But don't look at creators or YouTubers or influencers. Look at filmmakers who are working in that field, or look at the principle of filmmaking in its traditional form, but just make sure it's in that arena, and just spend a month or so researching and looking at it. There's a lot of free content out there, which I wish was around in the 80s when I
Right.
started.
Right. Right. Yeah,
Um,
competence is huge. I think you're right on the money. Like, anybody can go point a camera, anybody can pull it into an editing software and craft some sort of story. But if there are fundamental principles to filmmaking that if they are not there, it's so easy to dismiss what you're doing.
yeah, yeah,
But if you can tell a really compelling story and keep an audience engaged for 70 to 90 minutes with a cell phone, people will pay attention to you because you're expected to make something good when you have money, when you have resources. So it just begs people to pay attention to what you're doing if you're able to do any of that stuff without.
yeah,
And so
absolutely.
I would challenge everybody, like you said, spend a month, learn composition. I think composition is like such a weapon that people don't even give a second look to. They're like, I'm just going to focus on, I've got a lighting truck and we're going to put 40 lights in this room. Okay, well, if you had no lights in that room, where would you put somebody to get the most interesting shot?
Mm.
Let's
Yeah,
talk about blocking and composition
yeah,
over, needing all of these other resources. And I think documentarians prove that every day. You can watch gorgeous documentaries where those camera operators are just running around shooting what's there. They just know where to stand. They know where to place the camera. They know how to capture that moment in a way that'll make you feel something. And those are those principles that you need to learn before you go make a
yeah.
movie.
Absolutely. And if you're a director, writer director, or that's your ambition, and that's a lot of people are in that field that technically it's like, I don't really want to camera operate. That's not kind of my thing. It doesn't really connect with me. Yeah, I totally get it. But you need to find someone who does connect
Right.
with it. Even if you're going to shoot on a phone, you need like-minded people who are going to go, well, cameras are my thing. Yeah, I love cameras. I'd love to try this. Talk to camera operators because a lot of them who are experienced will consider and think, oh, that's intriguing. You want to shoot a movie using a phone? I hadn't thought of that. Or, yeah, okay. You just don't know until you ask. But just make sure you've got someone who knows how to shoot. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I tell everybody, like, just like you want to go write and direct a movie, there is a cinematographer out there or a photographer that hasn't really done video yet, that has an incredible eye, that would love the opportunity of capturing a movie. It's just about finding those
Yeah.
people that feel like you do. And
Right.
again, not blocking yourself by this idea that I need to have a big bank account to bring those people onto the project.
No,
Sometimes
exactly.
you just need that person that wants a feature film on their resume or is just interested in the process. And you could, and then bond with those people and keep those relationships as long as you can, because those are the people that you're going to come back to on your second film and third film, and you're going to grow together. One of
Yeah.
my favorite examples of this is Drew Daniels and Trey Edward Schultz. They shot Krisha, a tiny little $40,000 budget movie that takes place in a house. It's like a big ensemble cast, and I think they shot it over like 8 days or something like that. Drew Daniels shot a Nora. He came from one of these tiny little budget movies, and he grew with the filmmakers, and then he's standing on the Oscar stage just a few years later, and that's not because he was waiting for paychecks, but he found the people that he wanted to work with and just kept working with those people, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's ultimately how you grow a career.
Absolutely. And there's a great example. A film has just been released in the UK, shot by an English guy who's an actor. He's an actor, but he's then gone into directing and so on. He's shot an entire movie on his own. He stars in it. He's filmed it himself. He's done everything, and it's now up for BAFTAs. It's blown up, and it was shot on a phone.
I
So
love these stories so
yeah,
much. I love
and
these
it's
stories so much because it's like it proves it's possible.
yeah. And
I
check it
I
out. It's called Disremember. Disremember.
disremember. Okay, yeah,
He,
that's easy
he's
easy to
got
remember.
he's got a specific Instagram channel that he's just launched for it, but it's blown up for him, and he shot the whole thing on his own, over 20
Yeah,
days, and it's just crazy, and I love
I
it.
yeah, I think the same thing about uh Christopher Nolan. I'm like, he made a film over a year, shooting 1 day a week with his friends. The only money he spent was on film stock. So, data
Yeah,
storage for us in today's terms. And he made a movie that is fine. It's 65 minutes long. It proved his voice. Other than that, he spent no money. And so, like,
yeah,
if it's good enough for Christopher Nolan, multi-billion-dollar box office earner, Oscar winner, why isn't it good enough for the rest of us?
yeah. And we are in a world now where the streamers, there are pros and cons to having these streaming networks, but and let's not point at a specific one, but they need content, but the
Yeah.
budgets have changed. The budgets are lower. There's not as much money floating around. The profit margins have moved and whatnot, but they have to have, content. They have to keep pushing for content. And there's a whole new world of vertical platforms coming out now. There's, whatever it is you want to get into. If anything, even with AI and the threat of AI, or however you feel about AI, I think this is the revolutionary time for smartphone filmmaking, because this is where independents like me can push this content quicker and faster, and take a lot less risk on it,
Yep.
and keep pushing it out there instead of writing a story and thinking about it for 5 years. We're just like, I'm just going to phone up some friends who are actors and, hey,
Just go
let's
make
just
it.
go and do
Just
it.
go make it right now.
Right,
Yeah. Don't overthink it. Just go do
right.
it. And if it
Yeah.
sucks, come back next weekend and try again.
Exactly, and that's the great thing is you can just it's trial and error, and you can just keep filming, and that didn't work, but we'll do another one. Yeah, exactly
And
as you said. Yeah,
yeah, and hard drives, like just record over them. If you shot something
yeah,
you don't like, you're not going to release it and
yeah,
don't have the money to go buy a new hard drive, just record right over that, that last thing you
yeah.
made.
And
Yeah.
if you're a filmmaker that is going out to explore the first film, make sure you document the journey. There is a huge audience that will be interested in anyone's journey into filmmaking and how did you get that feature film off the ground. But if you choose to shoot it on a phone, there is always a media and there's always a large scale audience that's interested in wanting to know that. So that's a wonderful way of building a following. It may be only a few hundred, it could be a couple of thousand, but that's still more than what you had. And if they're interested in that journey, and man, he or she's going off to make that film, that's amazing. People want to know, and it's a great way of publicizing what you're trying to do, and it will build an audience, for when your film's ready.
I mean, that's ultimately what it's all about. I tell people every day it's a proof of voice. You are the artist, you are the asset. It's not the concept, it's not the film, it's the person behind the scenes and the brain that put it all together. And we strive. I miss physical media because, we used to have directors' commentaries and behind the scenes and deleted scenes. We've lost all that stuff. And so now is the opportunity to build your own YouTube channel and share the struggles that went into that journey because making a movie is never easy. And we take for granted every day when we watch good movies that, like, oh, they had resources. It's like, yeah, but you don't know what the actors went through, what the weather was like, what, other kinds of turmoil happened. Like, you think about The Revenant, and they were going to go shoot, 2 hours a day at golden hour, and they were going to shoot the entire movie like that. And they went all the way to, I don't remember where it was, Moscow or whatever, and there
Yeah,
wasn't snow. And so they had to pick up their entire like 80-person crew and fly them to a different place in the world to shoot that movie. And you don't know that when you watch the movie. So you have to have these behind the scenes moments to kind of reveal those things because it just makes you appreciate the movie even more.
absolutely. And it's a secondary audience. I
Yep.
think it's even 10 years ago, it's not something I would have personally had to have thought about. I'm just a filmmaker and I just want to shoot stuff. I just want to make things. But now it's interesting. It's like there's a whole audience around what I do, and sometimes it's not even the result. It's no, they just want to know what you do and how you do it,
Yeah.
because that's what motivates other people with no budgets to say, well, hey, then I can do that as well.
So on that note, where can people find you?
Here, there, everywhere. There's a there's a bit of me over there and a bit of me over there, and in Instagram, it's just my name, Cassius.Rayner. Easy to find. My old knackered YouTube channel is actually called Go Make Films. Could never get my name for some reason at the time.
Go make
Um,
films. That's a great one.
Go Make Films. There's over 200 videos on there. Everything's about mobile filmmaking, huge tutorials on whatever you need to learn. How do you shoot in low light? How do you shoot this? How do you do that? Loads of stuff on there. Some of it's a little bit out of date, but it does relate to even today's technology in what we're doing because it's about the principle of how you actually achieve it. Because the phone's not the magic, it's what you do. It's the skills that you bring to it that will create the magic, as I say. So yeah, check me out there, or check out this new thing I've launched.
Please talk about
I've
it.
gone brain dead. Mobile filmmaking studio on school.com.
Mobile filmmaking studio, beautiful. I'll put a link and a post out from my personal channel and send everybody over to
Thank
you
you.
because they need to learn it for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Wonderful speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, I will look out for what you're doing and hopefully there's some collaboration opportunities in the future.